Good day everyone. So what happens when a Genshin Impact player plays Honkai? Well, this is going to be the sort of comparative review, and it's going to be from the perspective of a complete Honkai newbie. Now, when I decided to make this video, it was kind of tricky, because in a certain sense you don't want to be too new to the game and not really say anything meaningful, but you don't want to be too experienced in the sense that you'll lose a bit of that fresh perspective. So hopefully I've kind of balanced it out. I think Captain level 54, 55 is sort of an okay sort of place to be at. And yeah, for those of you that are long-time Honkai Impact players, do note that what I'm about to say might seem strange to you, but do consider that this is from the perspective of someone that's looking at the game with fresh eyes. So I might not get everything right. On screen right now you can see my final score for the game, as well as the main topics with the associated timestamps that I'll be going into, so please feel free to skip around. You certainly don't need to watch everything, just the bits that might interest you. But in summary, I think the game certainly lacks from or suffers from its aggressive monetization, locking out new players, a very mix and mash of the CGI in terms of its quality, and its story overall just sort of hurting it. Unfortunately, you can definitely see why Honkai was the previous game, and how Genshin Impact has certainly improved on a lot of the aspects. When it comes to the look and feel of Honkai, you're essentially presented with this big screen as your main menu, and as you can see, it does feel very cluttered. So the idea here is basically that you're on a spaceship or an aircraft. You're standing on the bridge as a captain. You're sort of overseeing, you can see the horizon in the background and so on. And just to sort of make this clear, you are not the pretty girl in the background. She's your assistant. You can interact with her, talk with her, and so on. And if for whatever reason you don't like her, which is kind of not really something I can imagine, you're more than welcome to sort of exchange her for Fischl, which is interestingly the only Genshin Impact character that is playable in Honkai. Quite fun to have Fischl around as well. So when it comes to this menu, it can be very confusing for you as a beginner, particularly if you just sort of randomly start clicking on different profiles, and you start going and you just randomly clicking buttons within buttons, skills, bonuses, source, you go here. As you guys can see, it's very easy for you to almost get lost in a cascade of menus. So there we go. I just sort of had to now undo all the cascading menus, and this is the problem in Honkai. The menu structure and presentation is not as coherent and as slick as Genshin Impact is, and as a result it can be very confusing once they sort of throw you into it. That coupled with the fact that you essentially have, as a new player, a growth regime, a training levels, and then you've got a training shop and training materials, level rush, supplies, 7-day plans. It's just, when you get in as a newbie, they just throw rewards at you. It's almost like there's that one meme of the one guy that's looking at the camera in disbelief, and the other guy's just congratulating him, you've done such a great job. And that's very often how you feel, because you're just thrown with rewards, and it's well, okay, I didn't, this is probably the best I've been treated in my life. I get all this for doing nothing. And yeah, this is typically how gachas sort of work. The monetization in Gacha and Honkai Impact is extremely aggressive and egregious in my opinion. Basically, the entire idea is that you go to shop. It's very much baked into the game that at some point you have to shop for something. Now, the way in which the shop works is that, well, there are multiples of them, and you can exchange materials, which you can farm for free in the overworld for some items, or you can go and buy some currency and then you can exchange it for some materials. What you'll notice is that quite a lot of these shops feature only sort of bundles or exchangeables where you have to use a premium currency. So it immediately locks out quite a lot of F2P players and so on. And let me sort of explain how this works. So step one, you go to supply, you get a very subtle sign here that says recharge. You click on top up, and you are immediately sort of greeted with the crystals page. Now, for those of you that have played Genshin, we're all familiar with the crystals, but in Honkai there is a secondary currency that you can also purchase, which is called B chips, and these are not interchangeable for crystals, which is kind of it really does sort of irritate me. The only way in which you can get to crystals is via some sort of arbitrary exchange via a bundle, which I'll just show in a minute. But essentially, when you go to shop, you'll see here that, yeah, with B chips, you can get all of these 800% value, top picks, whatever they're going to throw at you. And of course, all of these things are on a timer, not that the timer matters. And once again, a very small subtle sign here telling you, you know, you can purchase some stuff and get free stuff. Really funny. There is a starter exclusive for newbies like me. There's a growth boost for newbies like me. Once again, as a newbie, how do you put a value on all of these things? Because you clearly haven't played long enough to actually appreciate what the value is. Is using 60 chips here worth it? I don't know. I'll only be able to really answer that question later on in the game. But there are also bundles. There are event bundles. There are sort of permanent bundles here. Once again, you can see the different currencies. I don't even know what this little chocolate heart is, but it's there as well. There are cyclic bundles. You know, it's just bundle galore. You can buy some outfits if you want, and you notice that the outfits themselves come with a sort of different coupons. So now you've got different coupons that you need for different outfits. It really does become quite confusing. So if I wanted this, let's say I'm someone that has sort of decided, well, I want Midnight Marigold. You cannot outright actually purchase this. You need to, if you really want it, go to some sort of bundle here. I can't remember where it is. Oh, it's right here, the coupon. And then essentially you need to ensure that you get the right special outfit coupon, and then you need to exchange some B chips for it. It's really, really egregious. By the way, that's just the one shop, so we can go to this shop over here. This is more of a material exchange. So once again, multiple currencies, multiple ways, including crystals to get some items. This is the daily shop. There's an exchange shop. There's a dorm shop. There's a witch corridors. There's a supply shop. There's an activity shop, Elysian shop, war treasury, battle arsenal, co-shop, mirror shop, Armada terminal, basic currency, asteroid shop, coin shop, event shop, golden bay, and time capsule. There you go, guys. So hopefully for those of you that are like me, pretty new to Honkai, all of that made sense, and you're completely not confused by all of this. It really is something. I'll be quite honest. Right, so let's continue the monetization paint. So let's assume you want this beautiful girl right here. You've seen her in the adverts and so on. Well, how do you get her? Well, first of all, you're going to be disappointed in that you're going to click on the supply button and you're going to be greeted with a very low resolution image of her. Not a good look, Honkai. This seriously, why is this HD? And oh well, let me not bitch about this. So you want the girl, right? The way in which this works is if you pull 100 times, you get the character 100% guaranteed. The only downside is if you do decide to purchase crystals, you'll find that a $100 pack gives you just shy of about 30 pulls. Yes, you heard that correctly, 30 pulls. So when you convert this back into Genshin terms, yeah, it is pretty much the exact same cost for a 5-star unit in Genshin. It's about $300. It's really, really egregious. The only sort of saving grace in Honkai is the fact that as you pull, and let's say you get unlucky and you sort of hit hard pity, what they do is they give you a sort of like puzzle piece for each character, and as you get more and more puzzle pieces, you can actually then redeem a sort of constellation or rank for a character. So in this case, if you do go to 100 pulls, it's very, very likely that you'll have like 2 Elysia's worth of value, if that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. My big problem with the sort of gacha in this game is that they aren't clear about what their gacha rates are. And now you might be saying, well, you know, you're just a noob, you should be clicking on this very obvious button that tells you what the things are, and you should go to a very obvious bottom right here, which is completely transparent to most people to see, to find the actual drop rates. And once you see these completely transparent drop rates, you still have no idea whether this is inclusive of the guarantee or whether this is per pull. And obviously, if you don't have these like values, you can't build a probability distribution of pulls. And if you can't do that, you don't understand exactly how unlucky you can get in this game. In other words, you don't have a good estimate of how much they can screw you over. This is very, very problematic with gachas. They kind of hide things in a very shady sort of way. And also, you might click here on supply history, but what you'll find is you'll only see the last 10 supply crates. Really? So they make it hard for you to keep track of your luck unless you somehow go to the software support center and you go and look up your entire history, which is only available, unlike Genshin, for 30 days instead of 6 months. Yeah, it's just, I mean, let's be honest, this game does everything in its power. To obscure the probabilities, to obscure your experience when it comes to having pulled in terms of like of your or like your history and so on. It's just, how do you plan in a game like this? You don't. So in my opinion, this is the gacha, the aggressive monetization is a big fat L in this game. um, and never mind the fact that there are so many different banners you can pull on. It's just, look at all of these things. It's just, it never stops. And I'm even told that once I reach level 61, there's going to be another supply, an elf supply, that's also going to unlock. There's only one redeeming feature, and that is the fact that if you want your character's equipment, you can essentially get this within 200 pulls, which, if you do the maths, is quite a lot more generous than Genshin Impact. I got all of Elysia's stuff in about 120 pulls, which, for my purposes, I was more than happy, and I got like 3 copies of the bow, which is kind of really weird, but oh well. I was pretty lucky. Alright everyone, let me not mince my words. The story in Honkai is incredibly bad. There's time skips, there are concepts introduced into earlier chapters that are only explained in later chapters. You have existing character relationships and dynamics that don't make sense. Somehow you are supposed to go and read the manga instead of having a story that is self-contained and can hook the audience. So for me, when I consider everything about the story, it's just it just doesn't feel good. It does feel like a lot of pain to just slog through it. There are some interesting moments, which I kind of like, that are cool and so on, but a lot of the time, the very poor quality of cutscenes in the beginning here, which they can at any point in time go back and update, especially, and also the level design certainly does detract a lot. In my opinion, when the story cutscenes are half of the resolution of this character's resolution right here, yeah, then you know it's, look, the developers are lazy. Why don't you just go and fix the story and make it more coherent, introduce more chapters, make it more and obvious? Like, this is, I've had complaints about Genshin's convoluted and crazy storytelling, but Honkai really takes it to a new level. Now, if you've played the story in Honkai Impact, you'll be like, okay, well, I'm lost. And what will then happen is you'll go to the starter menu, and then for you to progress on your growth regime as a new player, you have to now complete 1.4 Heroes number 3 in what? It's like, okay, what the hell is this? So I'm just going to click the go button. So now I'm in a completely different world. There's a male character, which I thought I was going to be playing lesbian females because that's what I like. I don't like male characters. And now I have a completely different story that I'm actually supposed to only play afterwards. But my growth regiment as a new player says go and play the story that's not supposed to make sense until you've played the main yeah, I want to exit. Yeah, that it makes me want to exit the game. Oh, and by the way, this is just one of the open world stories. Now you've got another separate story in the Sakura Samsara, so you meet Yai's voice actor, which is kind of nice to listen to. You've got an HQ. I'm not even going to touch that because I've no idea what's happening there. And just to make it even more confusing, there's an entire story and plotline and a multitude of unlockables and stores in the Elysian realm. It's just I want to give up. Like, this game is, I guess if you're like a day one player, and you were like, you had very little and progressively they added more and more, it would have probably made sense. But the very linear storytelling, the cascade of menus and systems and stuff is such a confusing, I almost swore, it's a cluster mess of a system. It's I'm sorry guys, it's just 0 out of 10 on the story. It's just horrible. The combat and the combat engine in Honkai Impact is arguably its best feature, and for me, being able to play the game in 120 frames per second as opposed to the sort of snail pace 60 frames in Genshin has certainly been quite refreshing. The gameplay does feel very smooth. There's very little lag in the combat stages and so on. I sort of do like it. It does feel more responsive than Genshin. Perhaps, I don't know if there's something with the ping system and so on. but it does feel good. It is interesting. It is quite a bit of variety. Unfortunately, the game can get a bit stale. It's like most sort of combat systems. Once you start really getting into it, you realize that at its core fundamental, you basically have a dodge, and then you have normal attacks and charge attacks, very much like Genshin Impact. And the rest of it is about how you do manage your SP. You do SP management, and you manage your, let's say, your QTE and ultimate abilities and so on. So for me, it is very, very good when it comes to the gameplay aspect. I do think it is not as deep as I would have hoped it to be. I do think they've added, or they tacked on a bit of artificial depth when it comes to the different elemental typings. So you have like biological and psychic and whatever mecha, having like this sort of triangle formation in terms of advantages and disadvantages, and you have another subset, and of course the elemental typing, Fischl being lightning, Elysia being sort of cryo or whatever. And at the end of the day, these things are cool, but they don't feel as though they're actually as engaging as the core combat system is in and of itself, if that makes sense. So whilst I think it has kind of a lot of breadth in terms of the things that you can do, the real amount of depth in it is sometimes lacking. In other words, there are points where you feel really rewarded for being able to dodge and manage your abilities well, but at other times, just closing your eyes and continuously pressing the B button or the attack button pretty much gives the same result. So it's like with the CGI cutscenes, there are moments where there are cutscenes and there are places where the rendering is gorgeous, and at other times it does fall flat. And it's the same with the combat, although not as bad. I think the combat is certainly much better in that regard. But yeah, do keep note, I'm only level 55, so there's a lot in terms of end game and probably like difficult bosses and stuff that I'm missing out on. But I do anticipate that the combat's still going to keep on getting better and better. So yeah, this is certainly a big plus in terms of combat. It's a bit different from Genshin Impact and so on. It is a bit refreshing to just get a new experience. And for me, that in and of itself is just worth sort of playing. The other cool game mode that they have in this game actually also allows you to jump, which is one thing that I'm kind of missing, but I can understand why there's no sort of jump mechanic in this little game mode. But not having a jump or gliding mechanic is certainly something that I'm missing from the Genshin days, as well as not having a proper sort of place in which I can go and take like pictures of my characters. I feel like this is missing, whereas in Genshin Impact that social aspect is very, very much apparent and clear. But yeah, not too bad in terms of combat. Alright, so let's just be really honest here. The only reason I'm playing Honkai is because of Elysia. Look, this character, when I first saw her, I didn't know where she was from. I didn't know she was from Honkai, but when I looked at her, I was like, yeah, she's probably one of the top, she's probably in contention for the inventor of lesbianism. You know, when the world was like created and stuff, Elysia was there in the beginning, and she has forever since guided a big portion of the female species on, in my opinion, on the right path. And that is absolutely what I like about the character. So absolutely from a design perspective, pink hair, yeah, for those of you that know me from Genshin Impact, it's pink hair is a big weakness. Kokomi, Yamiko, it really does hit the spot. The fact that she's got elf ears is just like I mean, this is just like a double blow, you know, just gonna, I'm literally gonna have a heart attack because it's so good. I absolutely love the elf ears, the far more like exposed thighs and sort of leg area. It's very much the same sort of design vibe as with Yamiko. Absolutely love it. I do like the fluidity of this character in terms of her combat movement. I didn't really get this character for her combat, but certainly I like archers and ranged characters, so her combat playstyle incidentally worked out really nice with the sort of playstyle that I prefer. I don't really like the up and close brawly stuff, so this really works well for me. Her elemental burst is probably the most gorgeous elemental burst or ultimate that I've seen in terms of the look, the visual feel, how it changes the battlefield, and then the this almost like mermaid-like sort of sea-like movement that you have with her just being able to weave around, and you have the let's go whaling moment where she like ducks underneath the stage and then hits the enemy with a big whale or dolphin, or I don't know what it is, but or mantis, or It's pretty cool. Look, the motif with the sea theme is something that I really like. The elf ears, the pink hair, the slyness of her character. So she's very much. So you have like Yai Miko, which is almost like obnoxiously sly and always wants to one-up you, and Elysia is much more like reserved and much more suggestively sly in terms of her comments and stuff. Well, from what I've gathered from the little Miss Pink elf. So yeah, it's almost like a good mix of everything that I like in terms of Kokomi and Yamiko's design, and now we've just got something here that takes it to a bit of like a very fancy avant-garde level, and that to me is pretty awesome. So yeah, I like the character, and I do like the fact that the Elysian Realm finally gives me a stage where I can just take the character that I've wanted and that I can just play with, and so far it's probably the only reason I keep on still playing this game, that I'm still playing this game, is Elysia herself. Great character, absolutely awesome. The only problem I have is I just want to get the elf. Why is it locked at 61? It's just, once again, the Honkai devs just being really weird. Right, so in conclusion, I think it's only fair to say that Honkai, if not for its aggressive monetization and for the sort of very mix and match sort of tack onness with its story and so on, can actually be a really good game. They've certainly got all the ingredients and so on, and it's quite obvious for me how they've designed Genshin Impact in a way that it addresses a lot of the failings in terms of the design that you see in Honkai. Certainly from my perspective, because the bar is so difficult for new players to get into with these new games, it is no wonder that Hoyoverse is putting their effort into creating more and more new games. And I think, unfortunately, it's sad that they don't put in the effort into their existing games. But yeah, Honkai, 4 out of 10.